What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint post-show edition of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast. I'm Tony Mango, and as we did earlier today with WWE Stand and Deliver, it is now time to talk about WWE WrestleMania 41 Night 1, WrestleMania Saturday, WrestleMania 2025 Night 1, whatever you want to call it. That is now over and done with. I currently still have the feed up on my screen right now, so if you see flashing lights and stuff, it's going to be from that. But I think I've got it low enough that you won't be able to hear it, thankfully. We, of course, are going to be breaking down everything that happened on this show, all the pros, all the cons, everything in between like that. And I invite you all to leave your comments below if you're listening to this after the fact. If you're listening to this live in the live chat, then chat it up in the live chat there. Also take advantage of the super chats. And we also have a goal in mind with anybody that wants to toss a little spare change our way for a bonus episode of some kind this month. So keep that in mind too. Of course, if you want to help support the channel, there's so many different ways for you to do that. Some of them completely free, like hit the like button, subscribe, ring that notification bell. Pass this along with anybody else that you think might be interested. Post it on like a message board, whatever it might be, on Reddit or something along those lines. But if you do have a little bit of spare change, you want to open up your wallets and help on that front, you can do so in a bunch of different ways, including the Redbubble and TeePublic shops that we have, and the join button on YouTube, which is the same as the Patreon stuff. That's the YouTube channel membership. So keep all this stuff in mind. Put that up on screen for anybody that's not familiar with my usual graphic that I do. And, any support that you guys give to us is greatly, greatly appreciated. It really goes a long way in continuing to do the podcast and keep the website up and running and keep me sane and still around. Discord is where we chat it up now, but we are moving pretty much everything over to that front. So join the Discord server and, have some fun over there. I had said before, we're going to look into the idea about potentially throwing the watch party audio feed into here and doing something along those lines. So that's something to keep in mind too. Maybe part of the Patreon subscriptions and stuff, maybe something else. I don't know. Maybe on a whim, it's just flat out open for everybody. We could have like one of the things that I've thought about doing before, which was the open house. I created a graphic for that was based off of the Legends House thing, and another one of them that I think was based off of In Your House or something. I don't know. I made lots of graphics for lots of things that over the years I just, didn't end up doing anything with. It's going to call something Inside Cradle at one point. Is all any kind of wrestling term. I've tried to figure out something for it. So, so WrestleMania. Let's start getting into this. Obviously, I am flying solo for this edition. So Rob's thoughts and Callum's thoughts and anybody else's thoughts, try to get them at some other point in the future and see, what they liked, what they didn't like, and everything else like that. I see that Caitlin is in the chat, and, we're chatting it up throughout the night on our Facebook Messenger chat and stuff. I see that Peter is in the chat as well. So let me know if you're out there, if you're listening and all that, drop something in the comments. And I'm going to say, generally speaking, when it comes to WrestleMania Night 1, I'm underwhelmed, I guess I would say would be the best thing to say. This didn't feel like WrestleMania to me. This felt more like SummerSlam. And I think that part of that might be the setting, maybe because it was just bright the entire time and it never got dark until the main event. Like even Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair was still pretty bright out for that. That, of course, could factor into that too. But a lot of the pomp and circumstance that comes with WrestleMania, I didn't quite feel for this year. Like, I'll complain about a couple things here and there and all that. One of them being, I thought that the entrances are kind of shit this year. Like, nobody had a good entrance except for, I think, Tiffany Stratton had the best one. But, for the most part, everybody they wore their gear and they just came out. And like, we had two people come out in cars. Okay, who gives a shit about somebody coming out in a car? It's a Rolls Royce. Okay, well, Charlotte came out in a freaking helicopter one year. That's a lot more impressive than in a Rolls Royce. LA Knight, I mean, I'm not a car person, but it just seemed like that was just like a car, So a lot of this year's WrestleMania, if this is how they're going to continue into tomorrow nights, is not going to feel like it's as big as last year was, or as, many other years have been in the past. Even the years that are like, you go back in time and they didn't have the budget for it. But like, I think that by and large, even like WrestleMania 9, we just watched a documentary about that stuff the other day. That feels more like WrestleMania than this did. So I didn't like that. I felt like a lot of the matches, of course, were either matches that should have been on like a Monday Night Raw, or they were matches that would have been on like a B-level pay-per-view or a SummerSlam type pay-per-view or something. And one of the things that throws me off about that is it seems like everything for this year's WrestleMania was just sort of like, well, we got to pivot, we got to change course, we got to do this, we got to fill in a replacement, we got to do an alternative idea to that idea that we had for several months or a year or 2 years or whatever it might be. And it's really like, it's racking up for this year's WrestleMania. We got some news on the pre-show that ended up kind of factoring in with that too. And for having a 3-hour pre-show, of course, they didn't really do much, but they did put some stuff out there that I ended up having to report on. One of them being that Rey Mysterio was definitely pulled from this. They also did a thing with Bayley being pulled for tomorrow. That's interesting to me because Bayley being pulled seems like that's just an angle. And for them to do an angle of pulling her when Kevin Owens had to be pulled and Rey Mysterio got injured last night on SmackDown, so he missed his WrestleMania match as scheduled. It must be that they planned this as much in advance as they could have, and that it's just bad timing to do that. But it's also something where, like, yeah, Becky Lynch is going to show up tomorrow, and she's going to be the big surprise. And it's going to be like, all right, it's Becky and Lyra because they've had a thing in the past that they're a tag team and all. And like, aren't you excited that Becky's returning? Well, to an extent, but at the same time, that's kind of shitty for Bayley to like set her up and then just be like, yeah, but we're not actually giving you that match. I wouldn't be surprised if she were to leave WWE the next time that her contract comes up, to be perfectly honest, especially with Mercedes being like treated like the most important thing in the world over in AEW. And Mercedes actually tweeted out about that, like basically like, call me up and, come over to AEW. And I wouldn't blame her at this point if Bayley does that, even though last year Bayley won the Royal Rumble and won the title at WrestleMania. It's still just like, she's not really doing much, and maybe it would be better for her to leave. And, this would be one of those things that maybe this was like one of those straws that broke the camel's back, kind of. So it's weird that they had that going on. Big thing that they announced on this is that WWE has purchased AAA, which, not on my bingo card. They wanted to do NXT Mexico and all that. So I think that this might have been some kind of byproduct of that. Maybe this was something that they've been thinking about for a while and they were going to fold AAA into that or whatever. And now it's starting to make me wonder about that thing with The Rock and the New Japan t-shirt. Maybe we're going to get some kind of an announcement on that front. Maybe they're going to get something with Noah or, I don't know, but it's like, seems a little bit more likely now. So, I think I can actually shut this off at this point. I don't think that they're going to be doing anything on this like post show that I'm going to need to see. So let's get that out of the way. Let me read some of the things in the chat here. Remember, everybody, if you want me to make sure that I see something in the chat, the super chat's the best way because it'll just pop directly up on that. I acknowledge my tribal chief, Seth Rollins. Becky and Lyra tagged tomorrow. I just talked about that. It's Tiffy time. And then, so did she lose like some teeth? Was that what happened? I didn't see that happen, but I saw a picture about it after the fact, and it seems like maybe that might be the case. So that's the entrances seemed more subdued than usual. Yeah, it's like you can't tell me that you don't have the budget for it. Everything was splattered with ads tonight. There were 9 ads on the ring itself, and then another 8 ads on the turnbuckles, and then Slim Jim next to every single logo, and then every match was presented by some kind of a thing. And you can't tell me that they didn't have the budget to do some kind of special entrance for some of these people. Didn't feel like Mania to Peter either. War Raiders entrance gear looked cheap as fuck. Yeah. Josh says I made the comparison to SummerSlam as well. That's what it felt like. It like really does feel more like it's SummerSlam. So now I'm wondering, like, is the 2-night SummerSlam this year going to be something where that feels like it's more like, I don't know, Backlash or something. Yeah, so AAA purchased by WWE. That was a big announcement. There's going to be a pay-per-view called Worlds Collide later on this year, which is happening the same day as Money in the Bank. So they're going to do the same thing, I guess, that they did with like NXT Stand and Deliver and the WWE WrestleMania side of things. I don't like when they do that. It's a frustrating day. It's very tiresome. And I think that they should just book it on a different day. But, you know, why would they listen to me? Anyway, the first match of the show, 3 hours into watching this program, not, ignoring the whole Stand and Deliver side of it, was Jey Uso against Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship. And this was when the first thing that made me go, oh, these entrances suck. Jay's entrance was a couple people with flags, and they had like the Las Vegas, whatever, cheerleaders or something. I don't know. The Raiders, maybe? I don't know. But like some cheerleaders in the crowd. That's it. And for like a guy that everybody makes a big deal of, like, he's only an entrance, his entrance sucked compared to some that, like, it's better even on Monday Night Raw when he comes out than what this was. So that's really just like, they dropped the ball with that. And it's funny because I think that kind of continued throughout the match itself. This felt off to me. Now, it wasn't a bad match. And I'll go so far as to say none of the matches on this show were bad, but they did feel like they weren't WrestleMania to me in a lot of ways. And in some other ways, maybe they felt like they were WrestleMania, but I still think that they weren't really the best decisions across the board. Why would you book a match between Jey Uso and Gunther that revolves around Jey doing Gunther's moves and making Gunther tap out? I don't understand that. Gunther's whole thing was like, he's barely been beaten. And now that he's not only lost to Jey, but he's tapped out to his own finisher? Do they not like Gunther anymore or something? Because this isn't a good look for Gunther. And for him to lose the Intercontinental title last year to Sami Zayn, which meant nothing. And I knew that it was going to be nothing. And I said that ahead of time. And then everybody was like, yeah, well, what else are they going to do or whatever? And then it ended up not meaning anything. And then, I'm sure that the people that disagreed with me back then would not say that I'm right now anyway. But I still think that was a mistake. I think that this is a mistake too. I don't think that there's any reason why Gunther should have tapped out. If you wanted to put the title on Jey Uso, which I already think is not the right decision to go with right now. I think that Gunther should have been fighting somebody else. If you wanted to do that and you had to do it at WrestleMania and you had to have him beat Gunther and all these other kind of things, he still should have won by pinfall. And I'm really curious what their game plan is here. I think in their mind, they probably think that's going to make it seem even more special for Gunther to be like, I even made him tap out and all. But I just don't see this being something that's really going to carry him going forward. I think that this is going to be one of those things that very quickly people are going to be waiting for Jey Uso to drop the title. And that the sacrifice that you did for Gunther's character is not going to have been worth it for the risk and reward balance between what Jey Uso gets out of this. Maybe I'm wrong. Anytime I criticize anything and I say that I think something's going to be bad or it's going to be a mistake or anything along those lines, I always want to be proven wrong because I'd rather see the product be good than for me to be right. So keep that in mind. Definitely think Gunther tapped too quickly, like what Kaylin said. I think that he shouldn't have tapped at all, but if he did, I think he should have held on quite a bit, and it would have been like, maybe he realized that he just can't get out of a hold or something, but the whole match just like, I don't know, it felt like Gunther was like booked to be doubting himself and to be kind of like cowardly, and I didn't like the dynamics of the match. Whether or not it's going to be worth it remains to be seen. People are going to go nuts to you, so won the title. Glad for him. Seems like a cool guy, all the kind of things like that. It's just one of the many decisions that I wouldn't have booked at WrestleMania this year. Of course, everybody has different opinions and all that stuff. It's not like if my personal preference for WrestleMania is the only possible thing that could be good. But I don't see the rationale behind the way that they did this. So Cal in the chat, I loved the main event, and I'm happy for Jey getting a world title, but man, the rest of the show was very underwhelming to me. Just a bunch of bog standard matches with not much excitement. It's a good way to put it for a lot of these things. Now, the second match of the show is another one of those types of scenarios. The New Day beat the War Raiders, and they win the World Tag Team titles. Now, we talked about this on the predictions side of things. This was very quickly rushed. They did not set this feud up ahead of time. It was basically New Day turns on Big E. Let's do some stuff for like a few weeks. Let's drop it for like 2 or 3 months and then just reheat it at the last second and go, I don't know, you and the War Raiders. And that's it. So this match is like any other match that you would see on Monday Night Raw. There is no difference to it whatsoever. The New Day win the belts. Cool. Love the New Day. Sucks for the War Raiders. But then again, they weren't doing much with the titles anyway because they just weren't really focused on them all that much. They were feuding with like sporadically having matches against American Made, and that was about it. The thing with the New Day and all, you can't tell me that match deserved to be on this card more than the TLC match. We're going to get that on Friday, and yes, I get it. You want to spread the wealth, and you want to move some stuff around so that way people watch Raw and SmackDown and all. But to me, that is going to be so much better of a match. And even just if they wouldn't have done that, but they would have just had like Pretty Deadly and Los Garza and all the people that have been feuding for a while with the Street Profits and Motor City Machine Guns and DIY, I think that all of them across the board should have been at WrestleMania instead. So it's a shame. Again, it's not a call that I would have made. And to go from the Jey Uso title reign to this, it was like, again, it's feeling like it's not quite WrestleMania. You know what I mean? We had Jade Cargill against Naomi. That was a good match. Not for anything, so it really doesn't matter. But Jade gets a win, so she, boosts her stock and everything. Naomi gets to play that role of the veteran, and, she did a good job too. Not much to say about this match for the most part. Even Jade Cargill didn't get like an interesting entrance. Like they just didn't try this year, which I'm assuming at this point tomorrow, I should just not assume. I should just not expect anything to be interesting for the entrances. So like Jade's entrance was like a pre-taped fake weather report that they did for like, it must have taken them 30 seconds to do. That's it. It's just, it's WrestleMania. You're spending all this money. You're making all this money and you're just going to be like, for what, So I don't think we need to see another match between Jade and Naomi. I think that they did everything that they could do in this match. And I think that since it's not for anything and it doesn't mean anything and it's not going anywhere as far as like a title change or anything along those lines, I think that this is good enough to just leave this as it is. But I liked it. Thought it was a pretty good match. What do we have next? The next was Fatu beats LA Knight and wins the United States Championship. So for the third year in a row, Solo Sikoa comes out and accompanies another Samoan to the ring instead of having a match for himself. And for the second out of the 3 years, that person ends up actually winning their match. Fatu is great. I like LA Knight. Glad LA Knight won that title to begin with, and I was glad that he won it back because I was assuming, a couple months ago that it was like, all right, well, Shinsuke Nakamura is not going to be a good enough spot, so he needs to drop it back to LA Knight or somebody else. So I hope that they don't lose track of LA Knight now that he's not holding the championship, and they can still put him in some kind of a feud with somebody and kind of keep him in that upper mid-card range or something. But it's the right call to put the belt on Fatu. He's got too much momentum. He's got too much steam. He's too fun. He's too interesting, and he's fresh. So all these reasons and more, putting the belt on him, definitely the right decision. And this match was fun. I enjoyed pretty much everything. I actually have forgotten to check my notes about some of these things. We go back and see if there's any notes that I should have talked about already. Oh, I liked the part with Gunther hitting Jey with the belt. I forgot to mention that. The referee is in the way, and Gunther's got the title, and he's like, I'm just gonna leave and whatever. And then when Jey tries to run out, he hits him with the belt while the referee's kind of getting out of the way. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought it was funny that the New Day, when they cheated to win, that they just ran off, just like bolted. So that was pretty interesting. I I don't think I had any notes for Jade and Naomi. It doesn't look like I did anywhere that I'm seeing on my screen. I don't have any notes for Fatu and LA Knight other than the BFT out of nowhere. I thought that was pretty cool. Jacob Fatu goes to do his moonsault, and it ends up landing him right straight in the middle of a BFT. It's not for the pinfall, of course, because Jacob Fatu wins and everything, but I thought that was pretty cool. It was a good means for them to do something Randy Orton-esque, kind of, and it puts over Fatu a little bit more. Because when you get a big maneuver like that, and it's a finisher on top of that, and you still kick out of it, you're boosting your stock. When are we going to get that Solo Sikoa feud? Probably not immediately, I would assume, because nothing happened in this match that would be like Sikoa accidentally did anything and he almost cost him it or anything along those lines. So I'm assuming Fatu is going to continue to have tension with Sikoa for at least a little bit. And then after, 2 months or, whatever it is, before we get to SummerSlam, I'm assuming we'll end up having a few between those two. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see what Fatu does as champion too. Cool. Then we had, that's right. We had El Grande Americano against Rey Fenix, not Rey Mysterio, because Mysterio was injured last night on SmackDown. Phoenix replaces him, so they swapped the graphics from Mysterio to Phoenix, you know what I mean? Now, this is one of those cases where it's like, yeah, okay, Phoenix didn't have a big entrance, but they didn't have that planned, so I could give them a break when it comes to that. The big entrance for El Grande Americano was another pre-taped, just, AI type of thing. Couldn't have thought of anything else. And the Creed brothers weren't a part of this at all. Nothing happened in this match. He just used the same, whatever that like little metal thing is that he's putting like right here. Then he's doing the, the flying headbutt and everything. That's it. So tell me what's different between this match and the match that he had against like Dragon Lee. Is it because it's like there's a lot more people in the stadium? Well, I'm watching it at home. You know what I mean? So that's not any difference at all. So I thought that this was a waste. I think that they should have planned this stuff out ahead of time better. I get that they couldn't plan out Rey Mysterio getting injured, but I really highly doubt that this match went down any way differently than if it would have been Rey Mysterio. It would have been the exact same match, except Phoenix can flip around better than Rey. They even had a thing with I never know how to say his name right. El Hijo del Vikingo, whatever the hell. I don't know. I'm wrong. I don't know how to say it. He's there for the AAA announcement and everything, and he was there ringside, and Chad Gable is like arguing with him, and then nothing happens, and then he helps up Rey Fenix, and nothing happens. So I'm like, you can't even have Vikingo do some kind of thing or something and be like, oh man, if you're interested in seeing the crazy stuff that this guy can do, then watch out for this AAA thing that we've got going on. Not even that. I don't get it. I think that this was just another like, it seems like WWE gave up on WrestleMania by like January, and they were just like, can we just get through it? It's just good enough, and we'll focus on next year. And if next year doesn't work out, then we'll figure it out, like that kind of thing. We read some other stuff in the chat here. Daniel says, watching Jey Uso at the podium right now, looks like he's been drinking again. Flashback to last year with Cody Rhodes. Frankie says, meh show, nothing really bad, and the only memorable thing that I'd go back and watch is the main event. That was fantastic. Michael says, the idea that Rey maybe broke his foot by kicking the metal plate was ridiculous. Vikingo kicked Gable in the head. That's all they wanted to do. It's just, yeah, it's like you could do something. You could do way more. They've done way more with less in the past. So not feeling like WrestleMania with that. Tiffany Stratton then retains her title over Charlotte Flair. I'm kind of surprised about that one because I just assume And in any scenario like this, that Charlotte's going to win, and then it's just going to be like, all right, well, now she's got 15 championships, and, you know, it's 17th if they count the NXT women's title reigns and all that. They really, at this point, they should just count those and then be done with it, because Flair is just not doing it anymore. A lot of people have been hating on this match. I didn't think that this match was bad. I thought that this match was solid, but not great. It's a good way to put it, I think. They had about as good of chemistry as I thought that they would. In some ways, I thought that this was going to be a lot worse. On paper, a year ago, I would have thought that this would have been better than what it was. So it kind of balanced out a little bit along those lines, but it's still something that I feel like in the grand scheme of things, I don't know where they're going to go from here. And I don't think that this was the right decision to go with Charlotte Flair winning the Royal Rumble, challenging Tiffany Stratton, telling the terrible story that they did, and then having this match. If they go with a continuation of this feud, I think that that's a massive mistake, because I don't think that they have the legs for it. And if they do that, I'm going to be very worried that they're just going to put the belt back on Charlotte again, and that this whole idea of Tiffany Stratton retaining was just to basically throw people off the way that they've done before with like the Ronda Rousey thing with Charlotte Flair and all. They've done that enough times that they could probably still do that again. And I don't really want to see a Charlotte Flair title reign. But to be perfectly honest, I'm not really fully digging Tiffany Stratton's title reign either. So I kind of want the draft to come around already and just like freshen things up a little bit, and maybe somebody else kind of get in the mix or something. I don't know. But Michael says she didn't retain her teeth. Yeah. So what happened? What was the spot with the teeth? Because I missed that entirely when that was going down. Was it like a boot to the face, or was it like I don't know. I didn't see any blood or anything. So I guess maybe like popped out some like veneer or something. Let me see if I can find something on that while I'm looking around here. Let's see. Tiffany Stratton teeth WrestleMania. Sure. Let's see. We got, let's see that. Yeah, this picture from Air Gold on Twitter. Tiffany Stratton has a welt on her forehead and she's missing a tooth. Yeah, well, she went through a battle. You could say that, but good for her for just like battling it out, because that had to have been painful. That's for sure. I think that the long run idea for this is mostly that they're probably going to continue this feud, to be honest. I don't think this is looking, at least to me right now, maybe I'm wrong, it's not looking like this is one of those things where it's like, we were doing this so that we could set Tiffany up to be like, oh, she beat Charlotte Flair and she's the next big thing. I think that they were planning on putting the belt on Flair, and they decided that they wanted to drag this out, or that they decided, well, we'll come back around to it another time or something. I do think that Flair is going to win that championship at least again. I'm still going to predict that it's Jade Cargill versus Charlotte Flair at some point, whether it's next year's WrestleMania or it happens before that. So, we'll see how that goes. I'd be down with Naomi. I'm reading from the chat. Who is this? Frankie. I'd be down with Naomi winning Money in the Bank and beating Tiff. Naomi's been doing great work as of late. Wouldn't be opposed to it. Josh says, I did see her lip bleeding. Michael says, they look broken, like 3 of them are badly chipped. Getting bloodied worked to get Becky over toothless aggression. Oh, I did have a note. I liked the backwards 450 splash that Gable did. I thought that was the best move of the night, probably. And if I didn't mention it already, I think that I did. Tiffany Stratton's entrance was the only entrance that I thought was actually interesting. This Barbie doll thing. But even that, realistically speaking, that wasn't all that complicated. They just put 2 screens up and they decorated it a little bit to look like Barbie doll boxes. So pretty cheap in the grand scheme of things and not all that complicated. It's a little bit more complicated than having a car run out, which is lame as all hell. But it's just cheap. and not looking great for this year's WrestleMania. And then you get to like the main event itself, and this was my most favorite match of the night. This is the match that I think if you want to go back and you want to check out something, then this would be the one that you would want to check out more than anything else. But, Rollins comes out and he's got a flamethrower that he pretends to flame the screen, but he's nowhere remotely close to it. And then he just changes his outfit and he's wearing white. That's his entrance. Ooh, fucking great. Roman comes out and he walks down to the ring. There's nothing for him. CM Punk comes out and Living Color is playing Cult of Personality, and they're doing a very poor job at it. I'm not a concert guy. I've only been to 2 concerts in my entire life. And for the most part, I don't think that concert performances are all that fantastic. And when people get older and they're not able to perform the song correctly and all that, then it's even worse. And this was like a bad cover artist or something. Now, I wouldn't say it's as bad as Motorhead doing Triple H's entrance in WrestleMania. Was it 18? Was it? Which one was the one that they were in? Where he's like, it's all about the game, and if you can play it, it's all about the game, and if you can play it, I'm going to play the game, and I can play it. It's a game, and I play games, and it's terrible, absolutely terrible. But the entrances for the main event, blah, just not great, not even good. Like there's just the most generic crap that they could have come up with. Like they didn't try at all. The match itself, fun match. I'm a little bit disappointed with the outcome, to be honest. And that came about when Paul Heyman puts a chair into the ring. Seems like he's siding with CM Punk. Instead, he low blows CM Punk and hands the chair to Roman Reigns. And then everybody's going, he's staying with Roman. And then he low blows Roman Reigns. Hands the chair to Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins gets a stomp on Roman Reigns. Reigns takes the pin, which I didn't think was going to happen. And Seth Rollins wins. I'm happy that Reigns took the pin after the things that he's said this week on his interviews, because I'm not as much of a fan of Roman Reigns anymore because of his personal decisions about a lot of things. And I would say like my highlight of the whole match was probably that there was this moment in there, I don't know, it was like 3/4 of the way through the match or something, where Roman goes for a spear and Rollins actually is able to like go backward enough that he turns that into a pedigree. I thought that was the best moment of this whole match. Better than the turn from Paul Heyman and all, which they're treating like it's a full-blown heel turn for both Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins, which is pretty interesting. Michael Cole on commentary is just acting like, that snake, that son of a bitch. Like you could picture Jim Ross doing the same thing. What the hell? Like that kind of thing. I didn't take that as like as much of like a full-blown heel turn, but I guess we're going to have to see. And I guess one of the main reasons why they might want to be doing that is because Seth Rollins could be one of the people that can feud with Jey Uso going forward. That would be, a high profile match for Backlash. That would make sense. You win the main event of WrestleMania, of course you would be a potential number 1 contender. I think that's probably going to be the case. Michael says that she already got her teeth fixed? Really? Already? Did they just like that kind of thing? Kaylin says, I wish the spirit of the pedigree had been a little bit cleaner. If they could have been, cleaner, it could have been perfect. I think that the way that they did it, I thought that it was like realistic and, it looked cool. I like that. With AAA now under WWE, does this mean we will get a return of Alberto Del Rio and Ricardo Rodriguez? I fucking hope not. The only thing I want Alberto Del Rio back on my TV screen for is for him to fulfill the obligation of the joke that we've been making for like 20 years, which is that he needs to put on the white trunks and shit himself and then just like run away crying. That's it. It's the only thing that I would ever want to see him in there. I don't know anything if Ricardo's a piece of shit or not, but I would assume if he is like friends with Del Rio that he probably is. So if he's not, then, maybe Ricardo could come back. Wouldn't be my first choice of somebody to bring back. But, if he's not a garbage human being, then I'm not opposed to it. If he is, then he can rot just the same. Everybody in the entire world, if you're a piece of shit, you can just burn. Michael says she walked out, smiled, and pointed at her teeth, which all look completely fine. Weird. Huh. I don't know. Maybe she has like some kind of mouth guard thing or something. But yeah, the main event goes down. Rollins wins, and maybe it's because it's like the vibe or something, but it ends with Michael Cole being like, all right, well, everybody, like, this is just Saturday. We also have Sunday's WrestleMania, whatever. See you tomorrow. I was like, that's not this grandiose, like, well, everybody, that's WrestleMania. We can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Tune in and, you know, at 4:00 on the pre-show and whatever. And, you know, what an epic night of WrestleMania, like that kind of thing. It was like, wow, see ya. So that was really strange. Again, all the more reason I don't feel like this felt like WrestleMania to me. And I hope that this is not a sign of things to come, that this isn't like, well, it's the Triple H first under his complete control type of WrestleMania, and this is what we're getting going forward, is this kind of energy, which completely defies what I would have thought that Triple H would have been doing, because that's not the vibe that he had been giving before. But if that is the case tomorrow, then it's going to really seem like that might be the case, and then WrestleMania is going to be a lot of hyperbolic grandiosity that is not really necessarily warranted. Also, was Lex Luger out for the Hall of Fame parade? Did I miss that? I was in the other room for it, but I've seen a lot of people that said, where's Lex? And by the time I came back around, it was already moved on to the next segment, but I was like, all right, I'm going to use this opportunity to go take care of some other stuff. If he wasn't around, why was Lex Luger not there? Weird. Anyway, WrestleMania Part 1 is in the bag, and I am thinking like, all right, for the most part, the matches were like thumbs up if you look at each one of them within a bubble. But if you were to tell me that, you know, how would I rank this kind of a WrestleMania? If this was the only WrestleMania that we got, it was just like, there's nothing for tomorrow, I would say that this is one of the weak ones. And it seems like that's a thing that happens a lot. We get like that good WrestleMania, bad WrestleMania back and forth. You know, it's like, you know, WrestleMania 30 has some really good things for it. WrestleMania 31 has some problems to it. And you get WrestleMania, you know, say WrestleMania 12 has the Iron Man match. WrestleMania 13, thankfully it has the Bret and Austin match and stuff. So it's like, it's not like it's like, you know, 100% one way or another, but it does sort of feel like they can't do like two really good WrestleManias in a row. And now that we're halfway done with this one, tomorrow's going to need to really amp things up. And that's not going to be a matter of like, well, Becky Lynch is there. Doesn't that fix all the problems? No. Randy Orton's opponent, we still don't know yet. If that's Rusev, that's not going to fix the problem either. That's going to be a kind of underwhelming thing. But there's, of course, worse options that they could do other than Rusev. And then you got plenty other things that could be great, or it could be just okay, or it could be terrible for tomorrow. I don't know. We're going to do the usual breakdown that we do, though. 4:00 until 7:00 Eastern is going to be the pre-show. 7:00 onward is going to be the WrestleMania coverage. And then, of course, immediately following that, we will have the post-show for WrestleMania Sunday. So that's going to do me in for this edition. Keep in mind that you follow Smark Out Moment, you follow Fanboys Anonymous, you follow any of those things. All that great support is just fantastic. And let me put up the link tree for everybody. If you want to follow any of that stuff, go to amangotree.com or anthonymango.com. You'll see the link list of every single thing that I've got out there that could be potentially worth following. You know, I've got, you know, hundreds of different accounts on different things else that you wouldn't bother to follow. But you know, like I've got a Substack that I never wrote on. You know, if you want to follow me there, go ahead. I don't even remember the name for it or whatever. But follow me on these things if you're interested in any of those things. And of course, keep in mind all the other things that I mentioned before, the YouTube channel membership, the Patreon, the Discord server, so on and so forth. And that's it. So thank you for joining me live for this. Seems like it's kind of rushed and everything, but you know, flying solo. I got through my opinions. Again, thank you for your support. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the live chat. And I'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully we have a better show tomorrow than we did today. And adios. It's been another Smark Out moment, and I'm being counted out.